I'm going to give you my pre-walkthrough lecture that I give to my homebuyer clients, and I also keep my seller clients in the loop about what this all means as well, because walkthroughs tend to scare homeowners who are selling their home, and I'm telling you, there's no good reason. First of all, what's a walkthrough? Well, a walkthrough is when the buyer's realtor and their buyer get access to the property either the morning of closing or afternoon, evening before closing day, and they do a little jaunt through the property and around the yard to make sure that everything looks as they expect it to before the money is released on closing day. Money being released by the buyer's lawyer to the seller's lawyer, i.e. the payment of purchase price. Why do we do walkthroughs, and are they even legally binding? Well, the residential purchase contract standard form agreement does not contemplate a walkthrough. A lot of people don't know that. You are not entitled to a walkthrough as the buyer. If you would like a walkthrough, then your realtor must write it into additional terms, in this case 9.2, into the contract that the seller will allow the buyer accompanied by their realtor to do a walkthrough prior to closing or prior to possession. In Lethbridge, the lawyers like us to do walkthroughs as a courtesy to the lawyers, so that if there is something catastrophically wrong with the home, such as an inch of sewer water in the basement or a flash flood or baseball-sized hail the day before, and nobody realizes it because it was a vacant property, something like that, it gives the lawyers a little bit of extra grace time before closing to start to come up with a remedy that is agreeable to buyer and seller. However, even if there's not a walkthrough, you're going to close on the property. You are under contract. An inch of water in the basement, does not necessarily void this contract. And I'm not going to say too much more than that because I'm not a lawyer, but 99.9% of the time, you will close on the property and pay for the property. And then the idea is, if your lawyer determines that there's been a breach of contract of some kind, you pursue litigation. The walkthrough is not an opportunity to nitpick the house and the seller like a second inspection. You are generally protected by Section 2.4, which says the seller represents and warrants that on completion day, i.e. when you take possession, closing usually, the property will be in substantially the same condition as when the contract was accepted. So after the seller accepts the offer in writing, remember everything must be in writing and part of this contract to be binding, the seller must maintain that property in the same condition. They can't punch a hole in the wall, they can't drive through the garage door. If there's hail damage before closing that wasn't there before the offer was accepted, they have to deal with that. They better call their realtor and their lawyer. But a walkthrough generally does not prevent a closing. So I've been doing this for 9.5 years. I've sold hundreds and hundreds of homes, and I think I've had 1 or 2 closings, less than 1%, close really late, like a week or 2 late. And I've actually not ever had a deal not close where the buyer did not pay the purchase price for the house. Now, there can be a holdback if it is written into the contract. There can be a monetary holdback if the seller doesn't do something that they promised to do in the contract, such as clear junk out of the yard, just as a crude example. But if you're hoping for a holdback, financial holdback, you better write it in here, or the lawyers have a bit of a mess on their hands, because if it's not written in the contract, it's really hard to fight about something you don't like at the walkthrough, such as some junk sitting in the yard. Because the lawyer's going to say, well, was it there before? Yes, it was. Well, you should have wrote something in here that you didn't want it there. No handshake agreements in real estate. So A couple other things to know about a walkthrough. Other jurisdictions in Alberta generally don't do them. Okay, this is kind of a Lethbridge thing. It's a convention, but it's not necessarily expected. You better write one in if you want it. Number two, we're not giving the buyer keys or a door code at the walkthrough because they haven't paid for the house yet. Okay, we don't release keys until the seller's lawyer tells us we may release keys, which means either the purchase price has been paid or there's a tenancy at will until the purchase price can be paid. That's a lawyer decision, not a realtor decision. The walkthrough is also not an opportunity to have a 2-hour meeting at the house with your realtor to start moving furniture in or making plans or bring in a contractor to do quotes. It's a 15-minute walkthrough of the property. Again, it's a courtesy to the lawyers. It's not a showing. It's not a home inspection. A lot of realtors and lawyers don't like walkthroughs. I'm happy to do one if it makes everybody happy, or if we suspect there could be an issue at closing, I'll write it in. But it sets up some unrealistic expectations, and that's what I wanted to explain today. If you have any other questions about walkthroughs or making an offer or negotiating an offer in general, you can always call or text me 3827335 or visit us at carrieflatla.com. In the meantime, have a terrific weekend, and I'll see you for next Friday Fire.